that case for support to put the body of that email together and maybe customize it a little bit. On the other side of this is the individual solicitations. This is where I go through my address book on my iPad and I pull out people that I think I can approach and talk to them, buy them coffee and talk to them about this project and ask them if they would be willing to give 100, 500, whatever, to support me in this project. And there's lots of different ways to do it, but it requires you reaching out. It's the scariest part, the scariest way to fundraise, because you're doing this one-on-one, you're out on your own, but if I do that, I raise more money than if I blast out an email to all my contacts, okay? Because it's more personal. People are going to give because you're asking them. And you're asking them personally, and you're telling them about your experience with this project and why you're involved. And it becomes a very personal thing. And they see your connection, so it's easier for them to be connected, okay? So the potential's higher, but there's more effort. There's no cost here, but there's more effort and time on your part as an individual, but the potential is higher. And then you get them to go to the website. The other option is to do an ice bucket challenge, but I don't think that's going to work for anybody other than ALS.
Yeah.
And don't get Brad started on that ice bucket thing.
Yeah, I saw
so mad at everybody who's wasting clean drinking water.
I thought the same thing. I was like, we can't do that. It's a conflict of interest.
So those are the 4 things that I want you guys to consider. Do they make sense?
Yeah.
And will National have problems with you doing any of these?
No.
Because they don't care if you write grants, right?
No problem. No.
The only one is sponsorship, so that EWB Nationals goes to these large organizations at a national level to get big funding, and so they essentially don't want their smaller the chapter level to be hitting up at the same time.
Would they let you hit up organizations that they wouldn't, like
yeah.
local technical engineering companies and stuff?
And every time you do that, essentially, there's someone at Nationals that you email and say, hey, we're going to approach these people for sponsorship, or there's this available grant. Is it okay to apply? Do they have any conflicts? And they normally respond within 24 hours, like, go for it.
By the way, when I send people after sponsorships, I put a packet together that they can take with them.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they put their own personal cover letter on it that I gave them a template to use, but if they know the person that they're going to deliver it to, they might put their own personal cover letter on it, but the stuff inside is all consistent and all has the right messaging. And we'll talk about, again, I'm here to help you talk about any of these, right? So
would this be, I guess it would be, individual solicitation? Because I've got us on 2 fundraising websites now, CrowdRise and GoFundMe. So that's the social media type thing where you are targeting individuals.
That's crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is something to think about. That would be it's a form of it would be a form of this.
Low cost. Yeah.
There's no cost,
No.
right? You don't pay for it. You want to put a compelling story there. Usually you're going to give benefits for people who give at certain levels, so you'd have to think about that, right? If I do a Kickstarter,
right.
I have to say, well, if you give $50, I'm going to do this. If you give 100, I'm going to do this.
CrowdRise doesn't seem to have something like that.
Okay.
It's just donate.
You might want to think about offering it.
Right.
And it could be simple, no cost things to you.
Yeah.
Like, if you give $100, we will send you an email with a picture in it every day that we're on site working next year, or something like that. Or we'll send you a quarterly update letting you know where we are. It's only good stewardship to do that stuff anyway. But if you offer it as a kind of a benefit, if you give it $100, we're going to do these things to let you know where your money's going. And that's really why they do it. I funded a movie once being made it was called Downriver, and it was like one of the levels you could get tickets to the premiere, you know. And it's kind of cool because you get to see where your money's going. So, we now are at a critical point. Because you now have heard about the things that I've recommended for you, and you could probably think of a couple of other things like crowd funding. And so now we have to kind of put them together and figure out, well, how do we want to break this down? And here's why you want to do this. It's a different thing to plan an event where you want to raise $50,000 versus an event where you want to raise $125,000, right? You're looking at a different level of venues, you're looking at a different lead time that you're going to need probably. You know, if you're putting together a six-figure event, you need much more lead time, and you're going to need more people involved. It's going to be more effort, and so we kind of want to think about doing this. I know Brad has told me that you guys have a little bit kind of grabbed on to doing a really cool black tie, which I think is probably a smart idea. But now we have to think about how would we break it down, how would we break the money down across these areas. And so the rest of my presentation, the rest of the slide deck is worksheets to talk about this. And I don't even know what time it is. It's 8:30. But this isn't, it's an exercise that you need to do now and think about, well, we should, if we want to do an event where we're going to need some money up front, maybe we want to start with get some smaller events going so that we can raise some short-term money, or maybe you don't need that short-term money and you want to get started on some other things. And there's things you can do at the same time, but you need to, you can get going on them immediately, but you need to think about how you want to do that and what kind of resources you have, right? So, so let me tell you what I've included, what the rest of these slides are. There's this one where we kind of break down, okay, of the 100 to 120,000, how much do we want to try to raise in each area? And I realize it may be too early to fill those in because nobody's even looked at what's the possibility with grants. Can we find anything, and what levels are they at? Are they at the $5,000 level, or can we find somebody that would grant us $20,000 or more? So you may not be able to fill all these in yet, but I wanted to start thinking about it. So then the other worksheets, you see these icons here. I put these here as hyperlinks. So on the gala event, I included a worksheet here. The numbers are samples. Do not look at the numbers. Don't look at the numbers. I wanted you to see where the numbers go. I can send you this worksheet, but these are the chunks of stuff you have to think through. What ticket prices do you want to would you want to charge? And do you want to do VIP versus general admission? And all know if you do VIP, that means you're probably going to give these people some free alcohol, or you're going to do some kind of pre-reception. You're going to give them something that the general admission people don't get, and that's why they're paying an extra $100 for their ticket. So you create. This is basically the budget for your event, right? Revenue and costs.
That's an estimation worksheet, so that's something that you want to put together when you're planning your event and kind of figure out how you're going to structure everything.
And I think this is something maybe Michelle got really good at the end, but this is something that we have not done in a while, and it just, I don't know, it helps bring stuff, actualizes, and makes you really look at numbers instead of, I think sometimes we just start moving and start calling and getting sponsorship and going in our different directions before we stop and look at how does the money need to break down. And at the end, sometimes we're not even really sure of how much we're going to make, and we kind of have that nervous feeling until we're like, oh, we made money on it.
Right.
Versus this kind of helps you get an idea what you do need to do to make money.
Yeah. And you want to set yourselves a budget that's reasonable for the number of tickets you're gonna sell. Because like I said, you know, if you can sell the tickets that you set, you're probably gonna cover your costs, right? And then everything else is gravy, which is fun, right? You're like, oh man, it's so much fun going out and asking for sponsorships, because I just got a $5,000 sponsorship, or I just got a $1,000 sponsorship. That's all money that you're going to get to take with you to Nicaragua.
Because everything else is paid for at that point.
Right. Hopefully, you're going to more than pay for the cost of your event through your ticket sales. But then you want to think, well, how can we do a direct appeal during the event when the energy is high in the room and raise the most money? We budgeted $10,000 for our direct appeal at the last event I was involved in. And we did this video that was really, really great, and we raised $27,000 in that direct appeal. Couldn't believe it. It was so great, we announced it while everybody was dancing. We stopped the music and told them what they had done. It was very cool. So, you know, so you think about what you think you could raise in each of those things, and you come up with the bottom line. And again, I want to reiterate, so if you say you want to put a small task force together to plan an event, which may be different from your 2 or 3 people that look at grants, I'm happy to meet with any of these groups. If you want to do a planning session around grants, if you want to put together a committee to plan a gala, I'll help you work through the planning of that. Okay. If you want to do some direct appeal, you know, some individual giving work, I'll work with you on planning that out too. I'm happy to come back as many times as it takes to plan each of these pieces out. Okay. Because Brad's buying me dinner every time I come back.
Oh, wow.
He hasn't heard that yet. One of you needs to tell him.
I think we'll just believe it.
No, it's a really cool thing that you're doing, but it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so you need your committee, you need the other 10 people who didn't show up
Yeah.
to be engaged, and I'll come back and talk to them too. So you really need them to be engaged, and like if you do this, you want people that aren't even in EWB to be on this committee. Because you need people, and you don't need engineers to do an event. You need arms and legs. You need people who will go out and get auction items donated. It's a lot. It can be a lot of work. But my partner Cliff did that for an event that he did nothing else for the event, but he went out and got auction items. Because he liked doing that kind of thing for this one event. And you need people who can sit together and think about, you know, what the menu is. Well, again, it doesn't have to be people in this room. So I highly recommend finding some of your friends who are good event people, who like to throw dinner parties, and say, how about throwing a big dinner party that's going to let us do this thing in Nicaragua, you know, and get a committee together. So for the gala that I worked on that I told you was netted $100,000, the committee was probably about a dozen people. Okay. But so that's why I say go outside of your group to get some people, friends at work who think what you're doing is cool, or you know, friends in other social circles who can be part of this group, and then you know, you have to bring them together and kind of figure out who's got what strengths and start planning it. Okay. So that was the event. I also have a worksheet for what I call community fundraisers. Some people call them fundraisers. You're really raising money, so they're fundraisers. These are 4-line worksheets. So I have room here to plan out 5 of these. This is really simple. It's like, what is it? Putt-putt tournament. How much are we going to charge per person? What you do first is, how much is it going to cost? Well, we've got to go to this putt-putt place, and we're going to rent it out for 2 hours, and they're going to charge us, they said they would charge us X number of dollars per person. Great. Then you use that, you know what your costs are. Oh, and we're going to have a cookout at the end, so we need some food, some simple burgers and whatever. So you figure out your cost, and then you say, well, we think we can get 50 people at this thing, and so, you know, we're going to charge $20 a person, so that's, you know, $1,000, $700 profit. You figure this out yourself. You know, what's a reasonable ticket price? what are your costs gonna be? If 700 wasn't enough, and